Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to take that stack of sources, all that information, and really boil it down, get to the core knowledge you need.
And today, our mission is all about communication efficiency. It's something everyone grapples with, right?
Absolutely. If you're learning English, or maybe you're fluent but want that extra polish, you know, the real tricky parts aren't always the big, fancy words.
No, often it's the everyday phrases, the ones that seem simple, but native speakers use them with so much nuance, they're like shortcuts.
Linguistic shortcuts, exactly. They're sort of the hidden architecture of a really natural conversation. And that's what we're tackling today.
Yeah, we've got some great material here, insights from language coaches who've pinpointed four core phrases that are, well, absolutely vital for daily English.
And they are deceptively simple on the surface. At least get back to someone, as far as I know, and then that common structure, how was something?
Simple words, yes, but the way they're used, the context, that changes everything. It's packed with meaning.
So, this deep dive, it's very targeted. We're not just giving dictionary definitions. We're looking at strategy, deployment, how, and maybe more importantly, when do you use these phrases effectively? To manage expectations at work, say, or to show you're not totally certain about something, or even just to soften bad news.
Turning these common phrases into real power tools for you. That's the goal.
Exactly. Power tools. I like that.
Because they really aren't just filler. They're power words.
Yeah.
They pack a punch, conveying complex stuff, feelings, time commitments really efficiently. They help you sound natural, accountable, sophisticated even.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's see what makes these four phrases so essential, so foundational to conversational architecture.
Right. Where should we start?
Let's begin with one I find really interesting because it does double duty. The phrase, at least, it's incredibly versatile. Its meaning shifts depending on the context.
It really does. It can be about setting a minimum standard, a baseline, or it can be used for, like, consolation, finding the upside.
A boundary setter, as you said earlier.
Yes, in every single case, at least, is about boundaries. Either a strict, measurable minimum you must hit, or it's setting an emotional boundary, kind of softening the blow of something negative.
Okay, let's dive into that first function then, the more transactional one, setting that minimum requirement. This is probably the first meaning most learners pick up.
Yeah, it establishes the absolute baseline, the least amount needed of time, effort, quantity for something to work, or be complete, or even just to happen at all.
You see it all the time with things you can measure, like time or effort.
Definitely. Imagine a teacher tells you, you should spend at least 2 hours studying this. What are they really saying?
They're setting that minimum bar, right?
Yeah.
Less than 2 hours. Not good enough. More is probably better, but 2 is the absolute floor.
Precisely. It's a restrictive adjunct, linguistically speaking. It puts a lower limit on the action, 1 hour, 59 minutes. Technically, you haven't met the standard. The focus is purely on hitting that minimum input.
It's very clear-cut. And this isn't just for studying. It applies in logistics, project management.
Oh, absolutely. Think about getting a project approved. A team lead might say, we need at least 80% consensus from stakeholders before moving to phase 2.
That 80% becomes a hard stop.
Exactly, 79%. The project doesn't move, at least removes all doubt about the threshold. It's objective, measurable. It dictates whether action can happen.
And imagine negotiating a price. If you tell a buyer, this part will cost you at least $500, what have you just done?
You've anchored the whole conversation instantly.
Yeah, you've set the floor. 500 is the absolute minimum. Any offer below that is off the table. You're controlling the negotiation right from the start.
And that control is key. Semantically, in this restrictive role, at least manages the other person's expectations. It defines the minimum acceptable outcome, the worst-case scenario that's still okay. It's efficient, no wasting time on options below that floor.
Okay, that makes perfect sense for the minimum requirement function. But now let's pivot. Let's talk about the other side, the more emotional one, consolation and mitigation.
Right, the silver lining function. This is where it gets much more nuanced, much more about emotional intelligence. And it's crucial for social fluency.
How does it work here? It feels quite different.
Well, it becomes a tool for managing the narrative, really.
Yeah.
Controlling the emotional story. It starts by acknowledging something negative happened, a disappointment, a failure, whatever. Everyone knows that it's bad.
Okay.
But then, immediately after acknowledging the bad, at least redirects attention.
Hmm.
It points to something positive that still remains, or maybe a less negative outcome that was achieved, or perhaps an even worse situation that was avoided. It's about managing disappointment as it happens.
Ah, okay. So it's like saying, yeah, this part is bad, but look over here.
Exactly. You hear it constantly when people are venting, right? Someone's annoyed, their meeting got canceled, ruins their afternoon plans, but then they say, well, the client meeting got canceled last minute, which totally messed up my afternoon, but at least I have time now to finish that report due tomorrow.
Okay, I see the structure. There's the negative event, then often a but, and then at least introducing the positive spin.
Precisely. Negative event plus but plus at least plus positive element. And by framing it this way, the speaker is doing two things. One, showing they recognize the negative impact, they're not ignoring it. And two, suggesting that the positive thing, the upside, should be weighed heavily against the frustration. It helps justify the situation or just makes them feel a bit better.
It's a coping mechanism almost, built into language.
In a way, yes. And it extends beyond immediate consolation. It can be used to frame things, hypothetically pointing out how much worse things could have been.
Ah, like reframing a failure.
Exactly. Think about a business venture that completely flops. Big loss. The person might say, look, we lost a lot of money on that and it really hurts, but at least we figured out a major flaw in our market assumptions before we tried to scale nationally.
So the loss is still there, obviously, but they at least frames it as a necessary cost, a learning experience that prevented an even bigger disaster later.
Yes. It turns total defeat into a very expensive lesson. That reframing ability is what makes at least so incredibly useful. It's about narrative management.
So if you're mastering English, getting this phrase right means you can set clear quantitative boundaries in one context, and then seamlessly shift to navigate emotional situations, offer comfort, or reframe setbacks in another. It adds structure to how you assess any situation, whether it's about numbers or feelings.
It really does bridge that gap between practical minimums and emotional resilience. A good tip for learners is to listen for the pause often. When someone uses it for consolation, there's a slight pause, a beat, right before they deliver that at least silver lining.
That's a great listening tip. Okay, so that really covers the boundary-setting nature of at least, which actually leads us quite nicely into our second phrase, if at least sets boundaries on performance or emotion.
Then get back to someone is all about boundaries on time and commitment. Professional commitment, usually.
Right. This is where that idea of managing expectations really comes to the forefront, isn't it?
Absolutely. This phrase is a huge signal of professionalism, reliability, accountability. Let's define it clearly. Get back to someone means you are explicitly promising, verbally committing to contact that person again after some necessary delay.
The delay is the crucial part.
It is. It signifies that you, the speaker, need time. Time to find information, check something, talk to someone else, or maybe complete a task before you can give a full response.
It's like giving someone a verbal IOU, a promise of future delivery. You see it constantly in professional settings, especially when you hit that inevitable information delay.
Oh, constantly. Imagine a colleague asks you a really specific technical question. Just saying, I don't know, or even hold on can sound, well, a bit unhelpful, maybe even disorganized.
Yeah, it can leave them hanging.
But if you say, that's a good question, let me just double check the latest specs and I'll get back to you, bam! Instantly you've communicated two critical
I
things.
say, what are they?
One, I don't have the answer right this second, that's just honest. And two, I respect your question enough to actively go find the answer and make sure you get it. It's a promise of follow-through.
And it feels much more proactive. You're taking ownership.
Exactly. And often the best practice is to strengthen that commitment by adding a time frame.
Right, like in sales.
Yeah.
I need to confirm that with our legal department.
Right.
I will get back to you with the final wording by close of business today.
Perfect example. That time frame manages the other person's waiting period. They know when to expect the answer, so they aren't left wondering or constantly chasing you. It sets a clear deadline.
The professional value there is huge, especially working across different teams or companies.
Immense. And it's not just about finding information. It's often tied to an action you need to take first. It's an action commitment.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Maybe in a project meeting, you discuss budget changes. You might say, okay, we've agreed on the adjustments, but I need to actually update the financial model first. Let me finish that, and then I'll get back to you for your final review.
Ah, so the getting back depends on completing a specific task. It signals the next step in a process.
Precisely. It promises that next step, linking communication to action within a structured workflow.
Now, you mentioned nuance earlier. Is there a subtle difference between get back to you and maybe just I'll reply or I'll answer later?
Yes, definitely. And it's important for learners. Replying or answering can be quick, almost instantaneous. Getting back to someone, however, implies you had to go away mentally or physically to do something first. Research, consult, maybe perform a task. Now you're returning with the needed information or the completed item. There's a sense of effort involved.
That's a really useful distinction. It emphasizes that gap between the initial request and the final resolution, which brings us to the timing aspect again.
Yes, the expert insight here is crucial. The power of this phrase hinges on specifying when you'll get back, or at least following through reasonably quickly if you don't specify.
What happens if you're vague, like I'll get back to you soon?
It weakens the commitment significantly, especially in business. Soon, later, when I get a chance. These are risky because they're subjective. Being specific in an hour by 5 p.m. tomorrow morning is much stronger.
And if you don't specify a time, what's the implied expectation?
The implied social contract is that you'll follow up soon, which generally means within a reasonable time frame for the context, maybe the same day or the next morning at the latest for most business queries.
And if you don't follow up within that time,
Then you've done more than just delay. You've broken the implied promise made by using the phrase itself. And that damages your professional credibility much more than if you'd never promised in the first place.
wow, okay, so using it creates an expectation you absolutely must meet.
Absolutely. But when used correctly, with follow-through, it communicates structure, accountability, professionalism, key factors in effective communication anywhere in the world. It tells the other person, essentially, your request is logged, action is underway.
That's a powerful signal. Action is pending. I like that.
And one common pitfall for learners. Don't use get back to you if you just mean I'll call you later for a chat. It's specifically about delivering information or a resolution you had to go find or prepare.
Got it. It's about the content of the follow-up, not just making contact. Which, thinking about content and its limitations, leads us perfectly into phrase number 3. This one's all about managing your own credibility through honesty. Let's talk about Henpei, as far as I know.
Yes, the great knowledge boundary setter. This is, I think, one of the most fundamentally honest phrases in English. It acts as a personal disclaimer.
A disclaimer. How so?
It signals that the information you're sharing is accurate based on what you currently know, your personal knowledge base. But crucially, it also acknowledges that there might be other information out there, new data, stuff you haven't seen, things kept confidential that could contradict what you're saying.
So you're confident what you know, but you're acknowledging you don't know everything. It's like intellectual humility built in.
Precisely. It protects your accuracy while showing you're aware of limitations. You reserve the right to be wrong if new facts emerge.
Where do we see this used most often?
It's very common in fields where things change quickly. Technology, science, maybe market conditions, politics. Anywhere, information is fluid. Think about stating current facts with necessary caution.
Okay, like in tech. Software updates.
Exactly. A developer might say, as far as I know, the latest software patch fixed that bug. What does that imply?
It implies they checked it, it seemed okay then, but they can't guarantee something hasn't changed since, or maybe there's a weird interaction they don't know about yet.
Perfect. I checked the logs an hour ago, all looked good, but I can't vouch for this exact second or for systems I don't have access to. It clearly marks the edge of their personal, verifiable knowledge.
It stops them from making an absolute statement that could blow up in their face 5 minutes later.
Right. If the system does crash later, their credibility isn't totally shot because they signaled the conditional nature of their statement up front. It's a credibility shield.
That makes sense. But you also mentioned it invites collaboration. How does that work?
Well, by adding, as far as I know, you're subtly inviting the listener to correct you if they have more current or conflicting information. It turns a statement into a sort of soft query.
Ah, okay. Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine you're organizing a conference call. You could say to a colleague, as far as I know, the client hasn't confirmed the agenda yet. Have you heard anything?
So you're stating your current understanding, but also prompting them to check or share if they know differently. You're trying to close a potential knowledge gap.
Exactly. It's a fantastic way to check consensus or verify information within a team without sounding accusatory. If the colleague replies, "Oh, actually, they sent the confirmation this morning, check your spam folder," then the phrase worked perfectly. The gap was found and fixed.
It encourages people to speak up if they know better.
Yes. And that's why it's linked to critical thinking. It makes everyone pause and consider, is this information still current? Has something changed? If we connect this to the bigger picture for our listener, mastering this phrase is about managing risk, communicating what you know confidently, but also transparently signaling the boundaries of that knowledge.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about being unsure, it's about being rigorous. In some cultures, hedging might seem weak, but in professional English, this often signals responsibility.
Absolutely. It signals intellectual rigor. The cost of not using it when dealing with uncertain or changing info is potentially looking foolish or unreliable if you're proven wrong later. That small phrase is a big shield.
Okay, brilliant. So we've covered boundaries with at least, commitment with get back to someone, and cautious credibility with as far as I know. Now for our final phrase, which seems the simplest grammatically, but maybe the most powerful conversationally.
Ah, yes, how was something? Structurally simple. Past simple tense, to be, plus a noun or gerund. But its social function is huge.
It's the ultimate conversation starter, or maybe continuer.
It really is a conversational lubricant, you
Yeah.
could say. It's a direct, open invitation for the person you're talking to share their subjective experience, their opinion, their feelings about something specific, an event, a movie, a project, anything.
Demands more than a yes-no answer, right? If I ask, did you go to the meeting? You might just say yes.
Exactly. Transactional, conversation potentially dead.
But if I ask, how was the meeting?
Now you're asking for an assessment, a story. You're soliciting qualitative feedback. The answers will be descriptive. It was great. It was a total disaster, surprisingly productive, a bit tense, actually. It opens the door to narrative.
So it's about moving beyond just facts into experience and opinion. We use it all the time when asking for a review, essentially. Not just, did you read the book, but how was the book?
Precisely. You want a summary of their experience, their judgment. The did you question confirms an action took place or didn't. The how was question asks for an evaluation of that action or event. One is closed, the other is wide open.
And that open-endedness is what makes it great for building connections, right? For bonding.
Definitely. If a friend just came back from a holiday asking, how was your trip, is far more engaging than, did you have a good trip? The first invites stories, details, feelings. It shows you're genuinely interested in their experience.
And in a work context, if a colleague just handled a tough client call,
You wouldn't ask, was the call hard? Too simple. You'd ask, how was the call? What were the main sticking points? It prompts them to share the narrative, the challenges, maybe even vent a little. That builds trust and shared understanding.
what's really striking, as you mentioned in the outline, is the flexibility of the something.
Oh, absolutely. That's key for the learner. The something can be totally concrete. How is the pizza? How is the new car? But its real strength comes when something is abstract.
Like what? Give us some abstract examples.
Okay, you could ask about a process. How is implementing that new software? Or about a change? How is the transition to the new team structure? Or even about a feeling or abstract achievement. How is finally presenting your research after all that work?
Wow, yeah. The range is huge. Processes, feelings, experiences.
It makes the phrase incredibly versatile. It really does act as that conversational lubricant, shifting the focus from bare facts to shared human experience, opinion, reflection. That's where real connection happens.
So for you, the listener, mastering this simple structure means you can instantly signal genuine curiosity about the other person's perspective. You show you care about more than just the what happened. You care about the how it felt or how it went. Quickest way to build rapport.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so that wraps up our deep dive into these 4 foundational phrases. And what a toolkit they represent, we've seen at least, is vital for setting those boundaries, minimum standards, or emotional baselines.
Then get back to someone, the absolute cornerstone of professional commitment, signaling accountability, and structured follow-up.
Then the essential, as far as I know, your tool for marking knowledge limits, communicating responsibly, and protecting your credibility in fluid situations.
And finally, how was something? That simple but powerful key to unlocking shared experience, opinions, and building genuine connection.
4 short, common structures, but wow, they are packed with nuance. They don't just add words, they add layers of meaning, commitment, relief, caution, curiosity. So what's the big takeaway here for you, our listener?
I think it means shifting focus, moving beyond just collecting vocabulary words and starting to really master the functional architecture of conversation, how these pieces fit together and what they signal.
So your homework, your challenge,
Is to listen, actively listen.
and your next few conversations at work. With friends, even listening to media, try to catch these phrases in the wild. Notice how people use them. What effect does it have? What reaction does it get?
Pay attention to the context. Are they setting a minimum? Offering consolation, promising action, hedging their bets, inviting a story. Observe the subtle work these phrases are doing.
And that leads us to our final thought for you to mull over this week.
Right. Building on this idea of functional, subtle communication, if these 4 simple phrases carry so much weight, signaling commitment, honesty, emotion, what other seemingly small, everyday phrases are out there doing the heavy lifting in English? The ones we barely notice.
Think about your own speech. Are there other little words or structures you use without thinking that actually convey a lot about your attitude or intention? Start analyzing those hidden linguistic shortcuts.
Because mastering those, that's often the key to the next level of fluency. It's the difference between just speaking English and understanding the unwritten social rules of speaking English.
It's moving from knowing the words to knowing the culture.
Precisely.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.